All right, so we've all signed a contract at some point, right? But have you ever really thought about how they end? It's not always just a simple handshake and we're done. Turns out there are 5 official ways a legal agreement can wrap up. So let's dive in and break them down.
So let's get right to it. What does it actually mean for a contract to be over? Does it just mean the job is done? Or maybe you both just agree to walk away? What if something goes totally wrong? Well, the answer is it could be any of those things, and a few more. And the law has a very specific name for this whole process. And that name is contract discharge. I want you to think of it like the official finish line in a race. Once you cross it, you're done. Discharge is that moment when all those duties and obligations you signed up for, poof, they're no longer legally binding. The contract is officially over and everyone is released from their promises.
But here's the thing, getting to that finish line isn't always a straight shot. There are actually 5 different roads you can take: performance, agreement, breach, frustration, and something called operation of law. We're going to walk through every single one, and we'll start with the 2 most common ones. The ones where everything goes according to plan.
Okay, so this first group, these are the ideal endings. We're talking about the smooth, planned conclusions. Basically, the happy path everyone is hoping for when they sign that contract in the first place. So first up, the most common way a contract ends is by performance. And it's exactly what it sounds like. You do what you said you do, and they do what they said they do. Simple as that. The painter paints the house, the client pays the bill. Boom. The job's done, the promise is kept, and the contract just naturally ends.
All right, the second happy path is discharge by agreement. Now, sometimes things change, right? Maybe business needs shift, or a project just isn't working out. And both sides look at each other and realize, hey, it's probably best if we just call it a day. So you basically make a new agreement just to end the old one. It's totally mutual, totally voluntary.
So if you want to boil it down, the difference is really simple. With performance, the contract ends because the mission was accomplished. But with agreement, you're both choosing to end it early. So one is completed and the other is canceled. Big difference. But, of course, life isn't always that neat and tidy. Things don't always go smoothly. So what happens when one person just doesn't do what they promised? Well, this takes us into the messy stuff, the most common reason contracts end up in a dispute. And that's called a discharge by breach. A breach is just a legal term for when one party fails to hold up their end of the deal. And this is a really key point. They do it without a valid legal excuse. They're literally breaking the promise that the whole contract was built on. This is not a mutual decision at all. It's a one-sided failure. And here's why this matters so much. A serious breach doesn't just mean the contract is over. No, it usually gives the other person, the innocent party, the right to sue for damages. So even though the original contract is technically finished, it can kick off a whole new legal battle to make things right for that broken promise. Okay, last up, we've got 2 endings that are, they're kind of weird. They have less to do with what the people in the contract decide and more to do with what the world throws at them. These are the unexpected endings, the curveballs, where some outside force just makes the contract totally irrelevant. All right, number 4 is discharge through frustration. This one's interesting. Imagine this. You're a painter, and you get a contract to paint a very specific historic barn. But the night before you start, a lightning storm rolls in, and the barn burns to the ground. Well, you can't exactly paint a pile of ashes, right? It's now impossible to fulfill the contract. That's frustration in a nutshell. Some crazy, unforeseen event happens that just completely wipes out the whole point of the contract. And our 5th and final way is discharge by operation of law. Now, in this case, the law itself basically steps in and acts like a referee, blowing the whistle and ending the game. This can happen for a few reasons, like a bankruptcy or if too much time has passed, the statute of limitations. It could even be because the thing you agreed to do suddenly becomes illegal. The government passes a new law and poof, the law itself just says, nope, this agreement is done. So, there you have it. Those are the 5 different ways a contract can officially come to an end. Let's do a super quick review just to make sure it all sticks.
Okay, so number 1, performance. The work gets done. Easy. Number 2, agreement. You both decide to stop. Number 3, breach. Somebody breaks their promise. Number 4, frustration. Something impossible happens. And number 5, operation of law. The law steps in and calls it off. From the perfect ending to the totally unexpected, that's the whole life cycle right there.
So, what's the big takeaway here for you? Look, everyone goes into a contract hoping it'll end with performance, with the job getting done right. But being smart means knowing about the other 4 paths. Understanding how a deal can get canceled or broken or just become flat out impossible, that's how you really protect yourself. It's about being prepared for anything. Thanks for tuning in.